Hello and welcome to Penguin TV. It is recorded by George Ephelis, aka Whiffy Penguin, and you can follow me on Twitter at Whiffy Penguin. Penguin TV is hosted by PureMTGO.com and sponsored by MTGOTraders.com. Get an 8% discount off all orders over $50 when paying with PayPal or credit card. And you can check out CapeFearGames.com and get an extra 20% off when trading paper for digital. Enjoy the videos. Hello, welcome to the next video. This one is about combo decks in Classic. This is going to be a little bit harder to explain, but we'll start off with Lion's Eye Diamond versions of the combo engine decks. This is the LED Bob Tendrils. I did a video about this a few months ago. You can, of course, go back and look that up to find a more detailed analysis of the deck and some matches that it played. But basically, the LED versions of these decks all resolve around Lion's Eye Diamond and Yawgmoth Will. If I had to pick a pillar for this to fall under, it would be Yawgmoth's Will, because this deck and the Gush decks use Yawgmoth's Will better than any other deck in the format can, making it the crazy auto-win card that people equate it to. But what this archetype tends to want to do is get a couple of fast starts with its Lotus Petals, its Dark Rituals, its Lion's Eye Diamonds, and a lot of redundancy with tutors. There are 4 directly in your hand tutors that combo amazingly well with Lion's Eye Diamond. And if you get a Lion's Eye Diamond in one of these tutors, you play the tutor holding control, crack the Lion's Eye Diamond, let go of control, let the tutor resolve, grab Yawgmoth's Will, play it with your 3 floating mana, and then go nuts with your graveyard. This deck is totally capable of winning on turn 1, and does very often. The natural predator to it is Workshop decks, because it is hard to cast 10 spells when everything costs at least 1 more. This version of the deck in particular has a couple of Hurkyl's Recall's main deck, with Dark Confidant to help give you incremental card advantage to find that Hurkyl's Recall. It also gets around typical answers like, say, Leyline of Sanctity by running a Mind's Desire, and it's got the backup of Voltaic Key, Time Vault, and Tinker into a Fatty. Most decks that run blue have these cards, but this is not the main avenue of victory. It is against some archetypes, but mainly your deck is built to explode out of the gates with this combo here. This is what you're trying to accomplish every game, right here. This version runs no counter magic, because Force of Will with Lion's Eye Diamond, not the best. I've run decks with both of them in the past, and I probably will again in the future, but it is not the most synergistical way to run a deck. This one has Duress. It's got a full play set. Necropotence is amazing. This deck does not run a Yawgmoth's Bargain because it was built before Yawgmoth's Bargain was available. Going ahead into the future, and definitely based off of Energizer, who you can find on Classic Order, you should probably be running a Bargain. It's an amazing card. I think it's better than Necropotence if you can resolve it, although obviously Necro comes down on turn 1. And that's another thing. Dark Ritual and a Necropotence is a very powerful combo as well. It's hard to lose the game when you play a turn 1 Necro. This particular sideboard just runs some Dredge Hate, because it's the only deck that can theoretically race it. Otherwise, it's got some bounce spells and some more Workshop Hate. But really, I mean, I have honestly been able to race Dredge a lot with this kind of a deck. It's very fast, and sometimes Dredge does not win the die roll, and they lose before they can untap 2 times. Another version of the LED deck would be something a little bit more wacky, and that is with a full play set of Bargains. Oh, that's the Tendrils. A full play set of Bargains, and a full play set of Show and Tells. And basically what this deck hopes to accomplish is you've still got your main game plan of Dark Rituals into Tutors, into Lion's Eye Diamond, into Yawgmoth's Will. But what it also has on top of that is 5 Necros, and with Show and Tell, it's easier to cast the Yawgmoth's Bargains. Because we're running 4 Show and Tells, on top of Tinker into Blightsteel, we also have Show and Tell into Blightsteel and Show and Tell into Emrakul, giving it a couple of nifty other win conditions. Again, the deck has a pretty similar clock to the LED Bob Tendrils, and this was actually the first video I did, so you can go and find that if you want a more detailed analysis. Another version is what I've referred to as the Nutstorm. It's a deck that has come out since New Phyrexia. Unfortunately, we have not had any events fire since New Phyrexia, so we don't know if it's a real thing or not. But it's something that Backed Guts in my clan brewed up, and it is really spicy. Basically, what you're doing is playing a full play set of Noxious Revivals, a full play set of Mystical Tutors, and 4, 8, 12, 16 cantrips. From what I've heard, the deck is much more difficult to pilot than your traditional LED deck. There are no Dark Rituals. But it has some pretty insane draws that can, you know, get around some spheres for the most part. Maybe 1 sphere, not 2 or 3. But basically what you do is you resolve Gitaxian Probe, and you see if the coast is clear. If it is, then you play Lion's Eye Diamond. Run a Mystical Tutor, and in response, you know, go get a Gush or something. You end up, I'm not exactly sure, I've never played this version, but you end up stacking your deck in such a fashion that you easily get your 10 Storm with your 4, 8 free spells, and you can stack your deck in such a fashion that Yawgmoth's Will into Lion's Eye Diamond becomes a way to win. And you don't need the Infernal Tutors, which you need Hellbent for. You can run it off of 4 Mysticals, a Gitaxian Probe, and a Noxious Revival. If you have Noxious Revival in your hand, when you throw it away to Lion's Eye Diamond, you resolve Yawgmoth's Will, Noxious Revival, something on top of your deck, probably, you know, a Mystical Tutor, Gitaxian Probe for, or maybe you go for Wheel of Fortune, but it's an interesting way to try and run an LED deck. In the sideboard, it's got some other nifty cards, a little bit of action against Workshops, more manas and card draw. Some other, even more action against Workshop. See, Backed Guts is of the same thought process that I am, except for the fact that he has 5 Duresses in his deck, which is kind of illegal. Basically, he says, I can beat everything except for Workshop, so I'm not really going to bother with the other decks, except for some Duresses. He's not running any hate for Fish or Dredge or Oath, because the LED decks really are this fast, and Workshop is the only thing keeping them in check. The other really good way to abuse Yawgmoth's Will would be the Gush versions of decks. Here we have Gush Tendrils, which is something that I would play in an event today if they fired. But we've got Yawgmoth's Will, and instead of Lion's Eye Diamond and Infernal Tutors, we have Fast Bond and Gush, which is an amazing engine. These 3 cards are great together. Some of the interesting things about this deck is it is able to run Force of Will because it does not have Lion's Eye Diamond. It is able to run Gifts Ungiven, which is quite amazing. The most obvious and typical Gifts Ungiven pile would be Time Vault, Voltaic Key, Regrowth, and Yawgmoth's Will. No matter what 2 cards they give you, you end up with Time Vault on the table, if you have enough mana. I've been able to crack out some turn 3 wins off of a turn 2 Gifts Ungiven, and it can be pretty brutal. So it's a touch slower than the LED versions of the deck because it doesn't have the explosive 4 Black Lotuses that deck has. Again, workshops are totally a no-go for this kind of a deck. We've got some main deck hate in Ancient Grudge, Hurkyl's Recall, and Rebuild. And my particular version sideboards lots of red artifact destruction, too. I have a couple of volcanic islands, and I sideboard in an extra basic mountain. I've got Duresses for the Storm decks because LED is typically a turn faster, so having the Duress is a good thing. And Nature's Claim is kind of like a throwaway to Oath of Druids because we are a turn or so slower. But for the most part, we don't care about the other decks. We just care about Workshop. We can easily race Dredge. There's no Dredge hate, and I am absolutely fine with that. Rounding out all of these decks, we have another version of Gush. It's kind of like the Tyrant Oath, except that it plays half the deck in the main deck and half the deck in the sideboard. This is another way that you can try and attack a workshop heavy metagame. It's primarily the same main deck as the other version. However, it sideboards in 4 Oath of Druids, and then an Emrakul, and it's already got the Blightsteel in the main deck. You would bring this in against workshop decks and just, throw down your Oath of Druids and wait for them to have to play a creature before you win. And you end up leaving in some of the Gush Bond engine because you do also have Hurkyl's Recalls and a Rebuild. I would prefer to play the red sideboard version than the green sideboard version, especially since this version doesn't have a way to turn on its own Oath of Druids. So the way to play this deck is to avoid workshops. Seriously. I've played a lot of the versions against a lot of the field, and it is the fastest deck in the format, and also the most consistent when there's not mono brown on the other side of the table. However, workshops are 33% of the metagame, or they were, if we had a metagame. So that is a real reason that we've seen maybe 2 fast bond decks, Enterprise events, and like 5 or 6 LED decks instead of all of the amazing versions that you could see. I want to leave off with one last version of Storm decks that X-Scorpio managed to money with in May, and I think it's a really awesome deck. It's very reminiscent of the Necropotence decks from 2 years ago, but it's got a full playset of Yawgmoth's Bargains. It has a full playset of Show and Tell, but instead of primarily trying to win with Tendrils of Agony, it is going through the motions with Soul Spike. Now, you resolve a Bargain or you resolve a Necropotence, and you draw cards until you hit Soul Spike. Dome them for 4, draw 4 more cards. Dome them for 4, draw 4 more cards. And you've created quite a bit of Storm at this point, and drawn through quite a bit of your deck, and it's quite easy to finish off with the Tendrils of Agony. But that's just one more option that you have when trying to build around a Yawgmoth's Will deck. And again, this deck runs Yawgmoth's Will. Unlike most of these other decks, it does not run Time Vault and Voltaic Key. Part of that is it needs to keep the black mana open, or the black color count open for Show Soul Spike. And another reason is Demonic Consultation. With a lot of your deck being 4-ofs and 3-ofs, Consultation becomes a really good card. All of a sudden you have an extra Yawgmoth's Bargain. But that's it for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.